In this episode of Renn Builds for the Renngineering YouTube and podcast, I managed to get the KW suspension finally on the car with the support of Bahnsport, so stay tuned. Welcome back to the Renngineering YouTube and podcast, and welcome to another episode of Renn Builds. In this episode, we're going to start to look at suspension. In the previous episodes of this series, you've seen the car have a new front end, so the GTS or Sport Design front end, the ducktail spoiler on the back of the car, along with the diffuser, loads of stuff on the interior, and there's more to come still. But really, this episode is focusing on the suspension and the fact that I fitted a KW height adjustable spring set. Something that hadn't been that well known up until, I don't know whether it's I've set the tone or other people have gone and done it since, but I've seen more of them around since. Lots of different options available to you when you start looking at springs. This car comes with PASM, so I've already got minus 20mm on the system already. I could go for the X30 kit, I think it is, and that drops it slightly more, but then it's a passive shock with no adaptive features whatsoever. So I started looking at what companies would I trust, right? Because I'm not going to be able to run back-to-back tests on all this stuff. I can't swap in and out and decide that actually H&R are better than KW or IBAC are better than KW, whatever it was. So with that in mind, and with some internet hunting and figuring out, I decided to go for the KW height adjustable spring set. What that does is allow you to rebuild effectively the top end of the shock and have a helper spring and an adjustable spring height on the front shocks. So KW figured, hey look, it's going to be fairly trustworthy. Stay tuned to the end of the episode to get my final feedback and thoughts on the system. Now I've had it on for 12 months and done probably 4,000 or 5,000 miles on the car since then. But for now, though, I'm going to head over to you're going to head over to Bahnsport, where we start picking up the installation process.
I think.
We got there, didn't we?
Just about. End of day, Friday. It's on its wheels.
It is on its wheels. What are the takeaways, mate, for that? So it's the KW height adjustable spring kit. So it's not a full coilover set. It is a spring kit. So reasonable expectations about how much it was going to be lowered by. I was looking for GTS 4 litre-ish sort of ride height.
So like a 30mm drop off a standard car, maybe an extra 15 from a PASM with -10 or -20mm.
And what happened?
So basically, rear ride height has remained basically the same.
Basically the same.
Basically the same. So it has evened it up across the axle because you did have about, I don't know, I think it was about 7-8mm in difference across the axle anyway.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Before we actually took them apart. But yeah, interestingly, so it's an adjustable spring kit, but only the front is adjustable. Yeah. Which and KW actually, say that's how it is, but the reality of it is it's a shame that you can't drop the rear down. Yeah. Because that's where we need it to be lower. Yeah.
And we left it bottomed out.
Bottomed out on the front. Yeah, exactly. So front is on maximum lowest adjustment.
Yeah, and I'll do some panning around you know, some nice bits and stuff. You can have a look, but I wouldn't raise it. No. That is as good as it's going to get.
The only thing is that it will settle. People, the KW that, you know, past experience, they say that it will drop down. So I think after 500-600 miles, it will probably set to its height that it will then stay out for the rest of its time. The suspension's on the car.
And we've agreed as well that I'll come back.
We'll do a recheck on the alignment because naturally, after it has settled, the values will be out slightly. Hopefully not a massive amount, but typically that's what we see. So yeah, we'll do another recheck and just fine tweak as needed.
But so going back to fitting it was mostly all right. It was the complication was at the front.
So the rears, well, firstly because the car's relatively new, low mileage, it all came apart lovely. Yeah. No issues, no seat bolts.
Thank God, I was
nothing
terrified.
Snapping, nothing that was, you know, bad. Rears went apart lovely. Fronts, basically, because you have the adjustable cups at the bottom that the helper springs sit on, they basically sit down onto the front shock absorbers lower than the standard spring plate. So that spring plate had to come off, as well as a collar that sits over between the stanchion and the body of the shock absorber. Yeah. No mention of that in the instructions. You don't know whether you've got to drift it off, unscrew it off if it's threaded.
And just by the way, I had to make a decision on this to go with it because we had to angle grind off the collar that was sitting on there before, which was at that point, there's no way that collar's being sold separately by Porsche. I was in it. I was in deep at that point. So, yeah, but that was all right.
But to be honest with you, the reason we cut that off is because it wouldn't clear past that top collar.
Yes.
And that top collar was the one that we didn't know whether we had to drift off, thread off, and we were trying to just leave that be and not touch it.
Of course.
But it turned out that did just drift off, so the other side we could remove without having to cut. But again, you don't know until you're there.
You don't know, and there was no reviews for this stuff. So I think the first person to have attempted this well, I'm sure there's other people that have done it, but not publicly. And it's come together all right at the end. Well, it's just a bit of a voyage of discovery.
I think, to be honest with you, after just a short road test, I think it's settled a little bit lower already. Yeah. But yeah, got a nice balance set up on it. So
so going on to the Geo, then we've gone for this is a road car for me. This is not a track car. So I didn't want anything super aggressive.
Yeah.
And we've gone for a GT4.
GT4, GTS sort of vibe. So basically we've maxed out the rear camber on its maximum standard adjusters on the eccentric bolts. So rear camber I think is just over 2 degrees. Yep. Balance on both sides, factory toe spec. Yep. And then on the front we've again maxed out your camber, which is 1 degree and I think it's 13 or 14 minutes on the front, which is basically its maximum you can go without throwing more modified parts on it to make it more. If we could get the rear, or if the springs were lower, so it was sitting lower, you'd have obviously increased the camber again, but because it's how it is, the ride height hasn't really changed on the back, we've just maxed out the camber as we can.
And it hadn't had a Geo for the entire time I've owned the car, so 4 years of it not being done, which I should know better. We've already talked about it. If you haven't seen the whole geometry tech tour, go and have a watch of that. Scotty and I pull all that stuff apart and myth bust and things, so it's a good watch. Massive thanks.
Yeah, brilliant. Honestly, and also to James,
who doesn't want to be on camera, and he's just said that he hates it. So, but thank you so much. You've bust your ass today. I really appreciate it.
And look forward to seeing it back once it's settled and another check to see where we're at.
And then break Well, let's start wrapping this episode up then. So, firstly, was the suspension setup worth it? No, it was not. It was a £750 purchase that I didn't do enough research on in the first place. And then obviously I had 5 hours of labour and geometry on top. So I can't remember what the final figure was, but substantial. What could I have achieved without spending that? Well, I could have spent maybe $250 on a H&R set of springs. Because Bahnsport know those things inside out, they'd have had it all done and dusted, and there was no problems with any of the car. So this car at the time, I think it had done 28,000 miles. Everything came apart perfectly. As you can imagine, it's basically new underneath still. So there was some figuring out, and obviously the labour, the figuring out the first time they've ever done this, that's on me. So they are kind of trying to work out how this stuff goes together, because it's not obvious. The instructions that came with the kit they left some bits out, which made it quite thinky, and being at a weekend when it was being done, it's not like Scotty or James could have phoned up someone at KW and asked for a bit of support. KW support, that's the next thing to talk about. Again, on me, not on anyone else. I reached out to KW after I'd bought the kit. Now I should have not done that, and I should have phoned them up or emailed them or got in touch before I bought the kit to ask some of these questions and make an informed choice. Because I didn't do that, I reached out to them and said, well, can you give me some more information about spring rates for the setup, what the parameters actually are with PASM? Because I have PASM on this car and it already knocks off 20 mil off the standard system. And I think that they're, I think they say plus minus, or minus, down to minus 35. What that means is 35 off the original setup. So if you've already got 20 mil knocked off that, you're down to 15 mil. So ask yourself the question, was it worth it for 15 mil off just the front? The back was basically the same because they wanted to kind of introduce some brake into the car. No, none of it was worth it. It was basically got a very minor change visually. And I can't even tell you whether the spring rates are noticeably, apart from my arse, right? I haven't driven it for a while. I would say it's a stiffer setup. I would say the spring rates a higher spring rate all round, which is what I wanted. So I'm happy about that. Longevity of the kit, the actual, the anodized aluminium parts, they're looking great still. It's been a year on the car. I can't say the same for the springs. So the springs are, as most springs are, they're just powder coated a particular colour. And on all four corners, the paint has started cracking off. Now, there have been times where I've heard people arguing about this, and then companies will go, well, it's just a visual thing. There's nothing wrong. It's not going to damage the integrity of the steel. Don't worry. It's just a visual thing. Do you know what I say to that? Do better. Prepare your kit better, make it more resilient, because there's PASM springs that I pulled off the car from Porsche that brand new basically. So for a year or so, for those springs to start flaking, it's just not good enough in my opinion, even if it is the cheapest entry point into KW. So I'm disappointed pretty much all round. The car still looks amazing, right? So, but I think the car I don't think that the suspension had any part to play in that. The Bahnsport guys did an incredible job as they always do, and the geometry is fantastic. We went for a kind of, I guess you'd say, GTS stroke slightly softened up GT4 geometry or a wheel alignment setup. Without starting to introduce other parts, I think you can get like GT3 arms and things like that, which allow you to set way more camber than you can with the system that's on here or the kit that's on here already. We pretty much maxed everything out, and then just made sure it was equal both sides. It's great. It drives great. It's lasted well. It just wasn't a cost-effective or good thing to have done, really, which is a shame when you spent that much money. But as I've said lots of times on this podcast, on the YouTube channel, the intention is to be really honest, right? So if I make a mistake, I'll try and show that. And if I make a mistake in buying something and I don't rate it afterwards, I will be honest about that as well. So if you are looking, if you're in the market, if you've got a 981, I'd probably do it for the 718. If it's even different, it's probably the same kit. If you're in the market for a spring setup and you have PASM, then just beware that the KW setup is not going to introduce any drop whatsoever or barely anything. If you have a completely standard system, and it's a passive setup without X30 or X50 or whatever it is, then yeah, it's gonna you're gonna notice the difference. So in the future, what am I going to do in the future? I'm going to, at some point, I'm not in any hurry because it's fine, but I will change it all for another supplier altogether, and I'm probably going to use the same supplier as the Renn 550 build. Who that is, I'll be talking to you another time about that, so I'm not going to share the details just yet. I hope you've enjoyed this episode though, and I really hope that you get some value out of the fact I'm being really honest. Let me know in the comments section if you've got a different spring setup or if you've got some different shocks that you really recommend. Please make sure that when you put some comments in the comment section though, that they're decent, fair, reasonable comments, but also if you're going to say something's fantastic, add something else other than it's great. Why is it great? Tell me why it's great. And hopefully people, when they're looking and they're searching around trying to find 901 suspension setups, they can use this as a reference point and then use the comment section as well to understand what the best setup is for their car based on all the feedback. The next episode you'll see that's coming out is not going to be another Renn Builds episode. There is lots to do still on this car. There's stuff that's already booked in, but I'm going to bank that and then I'll do something probably in the middle of 2024 and then give you an update. I'm going to do one episode where I do all the modifications on this car, and we'll do a drive out and we'll do loads of shots and stuff. It'll be sort of a compilation of what's been before, but all the focus on this car and get it all in one episode. So that's coming, but we're going to head back to Heritage and Tech Talk, and there's already stuff that's been shot months and months ago that's going to come out, and also stuff that's in the books for this year. And some of that stuff is incredibly exciting, and yeah, Renngineering is going to change completely based on what you're going to see coming up. Thanks ever so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed all of this. Don't forget to head over to the podcast as well. All podcast streaming services had a massive increase in spike actually in the listening figures for that as well. So people do seem to be enjoying it, which is great. For now though, hope you're having a lovely weekend, have a lovely next week, and I will see you another time. Take care for now. Bye bye.